Hi everybody, welcome to ÉCU Friday Live. My name's Scott Hillier, independent film director and president of ÉCU, the European Independent Film Festival, the All Asian Independent Film Festival, and the shortly to be announced, the All African Independent Film Festival. So we've got a lot of film festival action happening here. But these ÉCU Friday Lives are playing a larger and larger part in our outreach, and we try to make them entertaining, informative, intelligent, not because of me, but by the intelligent people that we have on board to talk to us. And today's topic is one that a lot of people are talking about, and it's become a bit sort of cliched and catchphrase-ish and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to go down the path anyway to hope that we can offer up something slightly different. I heard about a story in the weekend, thanks to the BBC. Please, everybody, listen to the BBC. It's one of the best experiences you'll ever have in your life. And it came up that there was a winner of an award, a prestigious Japanese literary award, Japanese author. And she wrote a book called The Tokyo Tower of Sympathy. And it was awarded the best work of fiction by a promising new writer. It was written about AI, and it's slightly more complex than it sounds, but the top line is that 5% of the book, her acknowledgement, was written by AI. And that sort of sparked me up a little bit, and I thought, wow, we talk about it, we all use it, I guess. But here's somebody who's actually written a book that you open up and whatever, and it's not original thoughts. And, it's been used by a computer, and that sort of got me thinking. We started bouncing the idea around, and then another bit of information that I'd like to pass on, I think everybody should listen to, is the Andrew Huberman podcast, the Huberman Lab. And I was in the gym yesterday and I was listening to him, and very, very clever neuroscientist guy, clever mind like as big as a galaxy. And he had a great podcast and they were talking about AI. And he said it's expected, he believes it's going to greatly improve the human experience. And he says it'll likely, all of us will very soon have access to AI assistance. And that assistance can be AI health assistance, psychological assistance. And he said it's going to be, generally, it's going to help you make informed decisions throughout your day. And that's the sort of the top line of their talk. But then they're going, well, let's harness this. Let's see what we can do as a tool, because you can't stop it. The floodgates are open. And so today what we did is we're talking to two talented screenwriters to see where we're going. Are we going to be happy about the fact that machines have created what we're sticking into our brains? Or is that going to help us, hinder us, take us further forward? So I'd like to introduce our first guest, Ted Wilkes. Ted is a screenwriter and lecturer at Regent's University London, where he covers topics such as screenwriting, film history, and film studies. He's also a co-founder of the Bottle Rocket Film, which provides several award-winning short narrative and commercial content, including an upcoming film entitled Love, Death, and Taxes, written and directed by the man we're welcoming today. So welcome, Ted. Thanks for spending your time with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey up to today?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for having me. It's really great to be able to talk about this and to be able to hopefully disseminate a bit of knowledge. Just to say, I no longer teach at Regent's University. My current employer wouldn't be very happy if I didn't say it. I teach at the University for the Creative Arts in Farnham. But it was a very recent move, so I'll forgive your researchers for that. So basically, always been interested in the written word, always been interested in telling stories, and always loved film. And one of my first visits to the cinema, I very clearly remember seeing the Flintstones up there on the screen. It might have been some confusing young people's feelings about Halle Berry, but I really kind of wanted to tell the stories that were up there on that screen. Obviously not understanding what a screenwriter is, but flash forward 20 years later, and I get to call it my day job, which I'm very, very pleased about. But mainly focused on kind of genre fiction writing, and very, very blessed as well to be able to kind of pass on my knowledge to the next generation teaching at universities. So I'm hoping that we can get into the weeds of this conversation and solve the AI problem for good.
Well, there you go. Is it a problem? Talk to me about your thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, you know, I speak at length with colleagues and with friends about AI, and I kind of go back and forth on it, and I see some people who are very fearful about it, and some people who are a real kind of champion of especially like large language models. And you know, you know, in your introduction when you're kind of mentioning about it as an assistant, as a tool, I kind of see it almost like as a toy. And it's a real, you know, using say ChatGPT and the large language models, it's a great way to kind of bounce ideas around and see, you know, what kind of things it spits back out, you know, and how we can potentially kind of mold them into something else. The kind of the big problem for me always with using them though is that, you know, they are replicating. That's the mere point of them, is that they've kind of learned the general kind of cadence of what a story looks like, or what a sentence looks like, or what a kind of a synopsis is, and it gives you that again. I think that's why obviously we've seen these parodies of Wes Anderson's work, because it is so replicable, it is so repeatable, there is such a kind of defined voice and aesthetic to it, that AI is able to replicate these things. And obviously as audiences, although we go for kind of the familiar, we go for the comfort of kind of seeing that narrative play out in front of us, of, you know, a hero leaves a space, goes and fights a demon, returns having vanquished it to the praise of the village that they have protected. You know, we kind of want that hidden from us. And I don't think that AI is quite there yet. It kind of still gives us you know, what we want, or what it has seen before. Whereas I think that, you know, as writers, we're always trying to push our voice in different and new directions. And I don't think that AI is quite there yet. I can see it in our lifetime being able to do that. But, you know, AI for me is simply just a toy to be able to help me when I'm blocked. You know, just as well to say, obviously the writer strike in America, this was a massive point of contention, and I think that the WGA did a great job of kind of framing what AI looks like in the future for writers. In you know, it is a tool, it cannot originate work. Because I think, you know, that was a real concern I could see building up over the horizon, that a studio would just simply plug in a prompt to ChatGPT, let ChatGPT write it, and then have a writer rewrite it. And often those jobs aren't as well paid, but they're twice as hard, because you're actually trying to solve a lot of problems that the previous writer or the previous iteration of the work has kind of dug themselves into. And I think that ChatGPT would only amplify that, because it would bury itself into a trope or an idea that would then have to be fixed by human hands, but obviously would not get the full credit for it.
Lee Whittaker, one of my favorite human beings in all the world, and we haven't seen each other for a long, long time. Lee is a film director, writer, producer, and stunt performer, which I've never noticed that before, but he's got 20 years of experience in action and second unit directing in Hollywood's blockbusters, which is hard for a man who looks like he's 25 years of age. He's a good friend of ÉCU. His film Dancing with Fireflies won an award. Dancing with Fireflies won an award at 2015 ÉCU. He's had scripts with us, we've had films, he's helped us with submission judging. He's a real an expert and a great helper to the independent filmmaking community. We welcome him here to ÉCU Friday Live. How you doing, Lee?
I'm good. I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for that very nice warm intro. Appreciate that.
Well, you're over in California at the moment, 6 o'clock in the morning, so we appreciate your time. Lee, just for those who don't know you as well as I do, just tell us a little bit about your journey up to here.
Like you said, I come from the action world, you know, so I got over 20 years coming from action, starting as a stunt performer, then, you know, working my way up into stunt coordination, which led then to second unit directing. But, you know, being on some of the biggest sets with some of the, you know, the biggest directors and everything, it really allowed me to hone into the whole process of everything, working with the best writers, working with the top directors, you know, and really learning the process from them being on set, which to me really, you know, kind of catapulted my life in storytelling pretty much where I'm at now, you know.
And just on that, I mean, I believe I've seen this film because it was submitted, but tell me a bit about your last project.
My last one, I just had a film release in September called Amy. And Amy is in the foreign, that's the name for foreign, but in US domestic, they called it The Vigilante. That was about child sex trafficking that I did. For, to me, movies used to have a message, and I'm kind of a little bit old school, and I want to get back to that and making really strong films, independent films that still have a good, strong message that's not spoon feeding the audience, so that we can have, us as audience members and just people of the world, or citizens of the world, have a little bit more empathy and compassion to possibly subjects that we're not familiar with, So,
I did see the film, of course. Loved it. Hard, tough, very, very well made message. But there was originality there, and it was based on a lot of hard work. I know, which is where we're going to get into with this whole AI thing. And as I mentioned before off air, that we're going to keep this sort of, everybody's talking about it, and it's there. We can't stop it. The enormous snowball that nobody can stop, to paraphrase you. It's there. Is it going to lessen the impact of our films?
I think it already is. If you look at the trades just yesterday and today, you look at Doug Liman coming out with his film Roadhouse, that he agreed with Amazon to have a theatrical release, right? So they're going to do, their premiere at South by Southwest, but he's not going to be there now. And, he keeps questioning why that decision happened. And a lot of them think that it's the analytics of AI that's telling the big studios what to do, what not to do. So it could be just as simple as that. And they're kind of looking into those analytics and going from that, instead of being, hey, when we're in a theater, a dark theater all together, the computer doesn't know that we're going to cry together, we're going to laugh together, we're going to cheer together. And I feel like that's what theater or theatrical releases and movies have always been for us as an audience since the beginning of time. It was our escape of realism, of reality, together, cohesive. And I think that's what's missing in the algorithm of AI.
But I said on our socials, actually promoting this podcast, that I believe there's, without a doubt, there are scripts that have been written with great AI assistance.
Yeah.
That will be in the cinemas. That will be coming. And I'm wondering, the writer's strike, I think that it was obviously great that they fought and they stuck up for it.
Yeah.
I think there's no doubt that people are doing it. People in my office are doing it. And it's sort of like, it's a bit maddening at times. It saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
But the originality. And I think, one of my questions to you is, I'm guessing that you with your students and stuff, I'm wondering how you approach it with them. I mean, because it's, for me, I'm studying, I'm doing an AI course right now, just trying to figure out how the hell it works.
Sure.
It works very simple. Garbage in, garbage out. Let's do the science talk. Yeah. Well, good stuff in, good stuff out. But it's not original. It's searching for stuff that's already been created. And how do you approach that with your students?
So I mean, it's for let's take the creative work first and foremost. We have very frank and honest conversations with the young people we work with, and say, hey, you've come here to experiment with your voice. You've got 3, potentially 4 years to be able to find what it is you want to tell stories about. And if you want to tell stories about things that the computer can generate, good luck getting a job. And it's kind of a waste of your time. That's again not to say that we don't obviously signpost these tools, these toys that they can find great use out of if they are stuck, if they are blocked. But it is about having that honest conversation and saying, what is it you want to tell stories about? If the machine can do it, you might as well just outsource that to the machine. With strictly academic work, it is really quite problematic now. We're seeing this arms race between kind of plagiarism detection software and these large language models. And you only have to go on Instagram and have your cookies drop that you're looking at researching a topic before you're served adverts from AI companies promising that they're able to beat plagiarism software. And it's kind of made the essay null and void as a test. Because I have read, I'm reading them now. I have essays where I'm nearly 100% certain that this has been written by AI, but I have no way of proving it other than putting it into ChatGPT and being like, hey, can you mark this? And then ChatGPT being like, well, I wrote this, so that's not fair. But I don't think it would quite get to that point yet. but yeah, it's about kind of asking that young person, what is your authentic voice, and you can't get that through a machine. So, we need to find a way to signpost to them that, this isn't the silver bullet for helping you. It is merely just kind of a toy, like I said.
Mm. Yeah. Well, according to Mr. Huberman, it's going to again affect our lives a little bit more than that. And I love what you said about the authentic voice. Is there something that sticks out to you sometimes that just like goes, that's authentic, that's interesting? Because when it does, it's a gem, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love reading something that surprises me, and that's not just there's a big twist, or there's a big reveal, or that I see dead people, and no, you should have seen it by now, but Bruce Willis is dead at the end. But it's when I can connect with the work on the page and think, I've definitely felt that, but never been able to articulate it properly. And this person is, it may be quite raw, it may be quite misplaced at times on the page, but when I'm like, no, this person that I'm reading, this young person that I'm reading, has got a real story inside of them that is burning to come out, but they're potentially not directing it at the right place at the moment. So that I see as what my job is, working with my students, is to kind of direct them. But you have the young person who is aping or pastiching what they've previously seen, and that although that's an interesting exercise, that potentially doesn't help them further their craft. So I teach a lot of young men who think they're Quentin Tarantino, and the problem is that Quentin Tarantino does Quentin Tarantino better than you can do Quentin Tarantino. So find a new way to write that version of it and hope, but find something that you need to, that is burning inside of you, that needs to come out. That would be mine. Yeah.
What do you think about that? Are we going to notice? Are we going to see it?
I think we see it now. Will we see it in the future, 2 years from now? I don't know, because you look at the Midjourney from last November and last October, when Midjourney really popped, right? And so you're looking at all the images that are coming out. You can really tell when it's an AI image, that concept art feel, right? You can tell that. The other day, I saw some images that I couldn't tell. And I saw actual video that I could tell, but that means how much longer before I'm not able to recognize what's real and what's not real. And I think that's the big scare. And last year, when it first really popped, everybody was on board. Hey, this is the funnest thing. It's a lot of fun to kind of create this. We can make our visual storyboards and our lookbooks and all this other stuff, and be able to communicate with department heads. Hey, this is the look I want, or the wardrobe I want, or the kind of feel I want. But then everybody quickly realized the work that it was taken away from all the humans. Yeah. And that's the big deal. And so now I've asked a lot of, DOPs and cinematographers and other crew members now how they feel about it now, a year later. And now there's a wave within our industry that's anti-AI. And it's almost like if you do any AI and people find out about it, like, even in the festival circuit, you're going to get shunned. So it's really interesting to see that shift happen so fast. I thought that was really interesting, but we'll see what happens in the future, especially when it comes to the screenwriting. Yeah. And even in literature itself, the same thing is happening in literature. Because
I think there's not going to be old fossils like you and me, or let's call ourselves veterans, because we know what's on screen and we know what pushes our buttons. Right. And my fear is that 2 steps down, maybe the emotions are going to be softened, or the awareness is going to be softened, and they're not going to worry about the originality of a story or a film or whatever, and they're just going to lead watch what's there, and
right.
which will be a shame.
I agree with you, and I think it's an algorithm away. And I think there'll be a revolution. I think there'll be a battle against it, and who's going to win. But I think people will have to eventually state whether they worked with AI or not on their projects, what they're writing. And I think it will boil down to, if you got the money, the people of the money are going to work the algorithm that is proven 100% to get ROI, return on investment. Whereas other, like, literature, we don't want that, because then where's the individuality? Mm-hmm. And that's what I find is so great about not using AI. Am I lazy if I use AI? Because a lot of people say that. Even if I'm doing, a book blurb or just anything that's short, am I using AI or Chat GPT to use that? Am I being lazy? Am I copying out? Yeah, I would say so, because you want the fast way out. You and I grew up in a world of, you work hard, it pays off. You do it yourself. You got to learn the hard way. You have to fail to evolve and become whatever that is, whether it's, successful or not. That's the journey of life. And I think if you leave it up to a computer, you're kind of giving it away. Where's your individuality?
Yeah, well, no, I agree, I totally agree. Work hard to get better. I mean, I went through a phase last Christmas, actually, of I went through a Kurt Vonnegut stage.
Oh yeah.
And, my goodness, and Steinbeck. I put them all in. I did the whole thing, but it's just like concise, original ideas. Mm-hmm. And it didn't need explosions, and it didn't need Quentin Tarantino or whatever. It's just originality.
I mean, Vonnegut's fascinating because obviously he has his story shapes, and why do we look at the shapes of spears and say that tells us a lot about society when we're not looking at the shapes of stories, and what that tells us about what we want as a society, what our goals and aspirations and dreams and desires are. And if AI is spitting out the same shaped story time and time again, I think we're quite worried as a society, because it means that we're at the end game. We're just recycling ideas that have been time and time again.
I couldn't agree more. And my point in sort of having this conversation with you and the clever young things in my office is just, words matter. Yeah. Words matter. And the creation process, but also the absorption of them.
Yeah. I mean, Margaret Atwood, a far cleverer person than I am, she, in her book Conversations with the Dead, she says that writers are gravediggers. Any schmuck can dig a hole and put a body in it. That doesn't make you a gravedigger. That makes you a murderer, and you've incorrectly disposed of a body. But when someone says to us in society, "Hey, you are a writer," we have a responsibility. There is ceremony that we stand on. We are important to this society to deliver, a service that we are going to, we are going to honor and respect the kind of the process that we go through. She's quite morbid as well, as you can probably tell from her canon of work. I really do feel that, and I feel that the more we kind of lean on AI, the less we are kind of taking our responsibility seriously, if you see what I mean.
Well, I think wearing the badge, the writer's badge, it carries a huge amount of responsibility.
Yeah, massively so.
And I think that if you are a writer worth that badge, you must feel a little bit guilty inside yourself if all of a sudden you go, "No, if you guys only knew that 90% of what I've written is actually not by my brain." So I think if we can talk about it like that, and I love the fact that it's honesty and this and that.
Yeah, totally.
But I can see a genuine, honest idea like that. I run 3 film festivals.
That's the. I want to give any student who is listening to this that I hope that they haven't switched off immediately after they realize that I know all their tricks. So sometimes a young person will turn to these services, to AI, out of blind panic. They have no idea what to write, and there is a deadline, and it is hard, and I've been there, but you've got to kind of have that realization that just because the tool is there does not mean it is going to fix all of your problems. And often it is better just to have the honest conversation with the person who set the deadline to suggest that it's going to be a little bit later, because again, like AI digs itself into a hole, I think using it, the over-reliance on it, you will dig yourself into a hole. Very much so. But yeah, that one of the great realizations I came to when I started taking writing a little bit more seriously is that sometimes in the first draft there's going to be one word that is in the right place, and coming to that realization that I at least got that one word, I think has been quite freeing, because it's allowed me to discard everything that is in the way of that one word that is actually making that scene work, or that line of dialogue that the character should have spoke at the top of the scene all along, or the only line that they should have spoke, as opposed to the massive monologue that I've given them. And obviously working with great people and being able to allow them to kind of challenge the text and not seeing it as sacred is good. And I don't think AI would do that, to bring it back to the tentpole conversation, because basically it tells you what you want to hear. It tells you exactly what everyone else is saying, and what everyone around the language model is saying, and what everything that's been plugged into the language model, rather than someone actually having that authentic conversation with that word and being like, that's what it's about. That's the itch that we need to scratch as part of this film.
Yeah,
right.
And I beg of anybody listening to this, use your ChatGPT, because it's a tool. Do your research, do whatever. It's a cleverer Google, but it's recycled. It's all made by somebody else.
Correct.
And we talk as well about, you're a writer, producer, director. I'm very happy to wear those badges proudly.
100%.
But this responsibility, which means you have to damn well write.
Yeah, man, what a conundrum it has become, especially for us. You know what I mean? As producers, if you have investors, I mean, that pressure alone, your job is that ROI, that return on investment. And I don't want to use ChatGPT. I haven't used it. I'm kind of very anti. But at the same time, if all of a sudden you have these investors and they're like, well, your analytics say this. So there's that battle, and I think that battle is always going to be there.
And I mean, I remember going to screenings, when I was in the States, going to screenings, they had the red button and the red button, the green button and the red button, and your audience dictated the end of your film, and they're going, no,
yeah,
no, you're not.
Please,
the dog
get
died.
me out of here.
Trust me, the dog is going to die. And the studio execs are like, dog's not dying, man. I'm like, it's going to make a better film. People walk out.
Look at Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman, it had 4 different endings. Nobody knows this. Right? So they do test screenings. Just like you're saying, you got 2 different buttons. And they're test screening, they're finding out what's working, what's not working. If that's not working, go reshoot it. They ended up reshooting the ending with $40 million. And then boom, hit. Analytics.
Yeah.
It's
a tricky word, but originality. What's the latest film that you've actually seen that has originality that sort of made you sit back and go, huh, that's
easy. Poor Things. Boom.
I just talked about it. But I turned it off within 15 minutes watching the film. You see a lot of Emma Stone, right? But I was just like, this is bullshit. I'm off. I'm out. I went back, and I just went, oh,
how brave! How brave! I mean, it's so brave. And then you look at the confusing thing is like, here's a movie that just risked everything. It's so out there, and we need movies like that. But the problem is all of a sudden, if the first weekend or the first week of releasing it in limited theaters and it doesn't smash, then it's not considered a success, even though it's up for Academy Awards now.
Yeah.
And then it goes against, Oppenheimer or Barbie that's just crushing, the return. I just think that's, to me, I mean, it was such a brilliant, brave step that we need more filmmakers ready to do that.
And it wasn't being brave and stupid to the point of ridicule. It was intelligent, clever, very well done. The acting was ridiculously good. But just everything about it just worked. I still struggle a little bit with the end of it, but originality, authentic voice, honesty, it had it all. And Ted, this is a great conversation that we're having, and thank you very much. It's enlightening and whatever, but I think there's some great takeaways here that we've got, which is please, all you writers out there and whatever, just find your authentic voice.
Yeah.
And also be honest about your use of AI. I think that's a very important thing, whether it's here at the office or in your daily life or whatever. But also just the responsibility of a writer. just wear it loud and strong and be proud behind it, because you can't be proud of something that you haven't created, I believe. But I'm just going to pass you on to Rodrigo, the man that brings the power hour after hour and all that sort of stuff, and he's going to do a question and answer session with some of the crew here. So Rodrigo, it's over to you, man.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks so much.
I'll be back. Trust me, I'll be back.
All right. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much, Ted, for joining us.
My pleasure.
So my first question is, as a teacher, do you think that this AI is going to increase the number of people who want to study screenwriting, or do you think it's going to decrease it?
Do you know what, Rodrigo? That is a question I have never thought of, but that is quite interesting. I think, you know, as human beings, we want to be understood. We want to tell our stories. We want to kind of affect other people in authentic ways. And I think people are always going to want to tell stories, whether that be in words or pictures or ceramics or however we express ourselves. I think that there is so much content being made now that, you know, there is a real hunger for stories and for stories coming from unexpected places, or places where we haven't heard them before. So I think that there's always going to be a need, hopefully, for people to learn how to tell these stories, because, you know, otherwise I'll be out of a job. But, you know, I think the prevalence of AI is only going to get greater, and it's up to us to kind of find a way to manage that as a toy, as a tool now. But there's all, you know, just like as I was speaking about before with the WGA, you know, it is officially now a tool for the moment, at least. So we, you know, it can't create for us. So we still have to drive it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Seth.
Hi.
Hey, Seth.
Such a pleasure to have you. It's actually funny because my question has exactly a great follow-up question. It's almost like we planned it. But I'm curious how you teach your students how to use it as a toy. How, you know, obviously it's different if you're a science teacher or if you're a creative teacher. How can you teach your students to use this tool as a toy, as it will become more and more a thing in our future?
So, I mean, you know, great question again. The first thing is kind of making them aware that I know about it. You know, they tend to think that crumbly old fossils don't know about young people's things. So I kind of bring it up on the screen and they're like, oh, that's ChatGPT. He knows what that is. And so I do an exercise around Christmas Carol, the Christmas period. And I'm like, hey, reimagine a Christmas Carol, because it's a great way to teach 5-act structure, but it's also, you know, just a brilliant story of change, growth, development. And I say, hey, you've got to pitch me your interpretation of a Christmas Carol, and it can't be these 5 ones that ChatGPT is just about to spit out, because I know that some of them will leave the room and immediately ask ChatGPT, and then that'll be the end of it. So I show them ways that, you know, I would use it to kind of as a jumping off point. And then as well, sometimes, you know, we'll plug stuff in class. We'll be like, you know, how would you write a synopsis? How would you do this? Give me 5 ideas around this thing, just so that they're aware that, you know, hey, you can use it, but, you know, don't plug a scene in and be like, finish this for me, because it will just, I guarantee you, I've done it a couple of times with colleagues, it always gives you, and then they all lived happily ever after. And that's, you know, maybe not totally right for you. But yeah, that's how I use it.
Cheers, thanks. Appreciate the answer.
Oh, that's also as well. I mean, we've talked a lot about large language models, but, you know, the image generation stuff like Midjourney, Night Cafe, brilliant. Like I share that with them. It obviously spits out an image that has a certain aesthetic to it that you can kind of tell that it's AI generated, but, you know, it has made pitch decks insurmountably more engaging at the undergraduate level when we have an exercise around that. That's not to say that if you're going into a studio, don't take in something that's exclusively Midjourney. You know, pay a graphic designer money and get a good deck together. But yeah,
certainly. Thank you. Appreciate the answer.
Yeah, no problem.
Our next question comes from Sandra.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. I think that was really, really interesting. I have a question. I wanted to ask if you thought that the fact that we talk about, you know, AI a lot, but it would appear that it almost seems deliberate that we don't understand that the humans create this, you know, tech And so I want to know from you, from your experience as a teacher as well, do you think it is a deliberate attempt to kind of like ignore the fact that AI texts like chat GPT were created by humans? And if you think it's deliberate, why would you think people just sometimes forget that we made these kinds of tools that might be, detrimental when it comes to authenticity in writing and screenplays like that? What do you think about that?
Sure. I mean, I think people use AI tools for all sorts of different reasons. I think, sometimes it is laziness and they want to kind of just get it done. Sometimes, like I said earlier, it is the fear of, I'm on a deadline and I've got to get some words on the page. I mean, I hope that it's not that we wish to distance ourselves from what we have created, so that when Arnie arrives, that and guns us all down, that we can say, well, we didn't make it. No, we can't possibly have done that. But I think it is an interesting conundrum that when we ask it a question, when we ask it to fill something out for us, when we want it to kind of complete an idea, it will give us what we've always kind of wanted it to answer. Kind of this confirmation bias of sorts. But yeah, I mean, say for example, I was creating an application for some funding, and I thought, hey, I'll engage with ChatGPT here just to make sure that everything I'm saying is all right, and maybe I want to reword a sentence or two. And then at the end, ChatGPT is kind of a bit like, oh, you haven't thought about the ethical implications of this. And all of a sudden I was like, whoa, like it's not actually having a conversation with me, but it's now kind of prompting me to think about things that I haven't previously thought about, which are quite valuable. And at that point, I was like, "Oh, this isn't just a tool. This is something that's much more beneficial." It's I don't think it's kind of breaking the that threshold for what's the test that they have to, the Asimov test or whatever. But it's I think maybe it's bumping up against there. But yeah. And potentially as well, like the ethical implications of using ChatGPT. We don't want to think of it as very human, so we can kind of ask it our darkest, most twisted secrets, and it's not like we're talking to a human being who will judge us for our terrible thoughts. But I mean, I don't know.
My first question is, do you expect there to be any intellectual property laws reforms in the next couple of years regarding the use of AI for movies and TV shows?
Well, the toughest thing right now is you look at AI. What is AI? The actual definition of what it does, right? So it scans intellectual property already. So it's already taken in all this content from other writers, other producers, so on and so forth. So that whenever you ask it questions or you send in your prompts, it's equating all of those things together to give you that response that you're looking for. So in a way, that copyright has already been taken, right? You just can't put a name to it, or okay, that came from this person or that person. And I think that will be eventually the biggest battle, I think.
Perfect. Our next question comes from our intern Seth.
Hi, I'm Seth. Pleasure to talk with you. Such a pleasure. You talk a little bit about how you have there's this big movement within the industry of saying no to AI, saying working with it, not working with it, and saying we continue to focus on the creation of humans. I'm curious whether or not you think that people might fall behind. There's this fear that I have as a new creator about falling behind because other people are using AI, and other people then will be able to fast track certain creations. I'm curious whether or not you think that that's a possibility.
100%. I have the same feeling in my stomach. I look at my dad, who doesn't even have an iPhone. He doesn't even know how to, do anything. And so that's a big fear for me too, as a filmmaker. Am I aging out because I refuse to do this? It's a very, very valid question and a very valid point. And I think it scares a lot of us. You being younger, it's not so scary, right? Because it could rebound and you have that, and you're in the forefront of that, in the throes of it. Where somebody like me I'm very anti of it, But am I going to get left behind if I'm not smart enough to even use it for the analytics of my development stage? Do I write this story because of the analytics? I know this will make money, blah, 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 blah. If I do that, then again, from the very beginning, I risk losing my identity as an artist. End of story. So I think the juggle will become who you are. I don't think, again, if you look at AI, it's taking pieces from all these other things to create the end result. There's only one of you, and only you can write this or that. And it's up to you to do that, whether you succeed or fail. And then what is succeeding and what is failure? Who can stamp that says Edgar Allan Poe was good or Shakespeare was better? I mean, it's all in what our perception is, right? It's the individual person going, hey, I like that, or I didn't like that. I loved Barbie, or I hated Barbie. I won't see that. And I think that us as humans is what that foundation is. And that's what makes us special as artists. There will be that argument. There will be that revolution from technology and humans, just like Terminator. But I still feel like we're always going to win that battle. Because yeah, you can do the algorithm. You can do ChatGPT. You can write your script. You can write your book. You can be the New York's bestseller, but you didn't do it. It's not you. You let something else do it. I think that's the difference. And I think that real people want to read real things. You look at like the industry now, and I look at all the comments from all the films that come out, no matter where they're at. And I want to hear what people are saying. Most of the people are saying we're tired of the same junk movies. Write something fresh, write something new. Roadhouse is coming out. Then everybody's commenting, why leave it alone? Leave that movie alone, do something new. Leave Point Break alone, leave these movies alone, do something new. How come Hollywood isn't doing anything new? Because they're scared. Because they're looking at numbers, analytics. You know? Sorry, that was a really long answer, but
it was a great answer. I appreciate it. Thank you.
How ethical do you think it's to implement AI into the creative field?
so when you say creative, that's a big difference between business.
Films, scripts, like
what I'm saying is film is creative. A movie is creativity, right? But there's also a business side to it. And we know that AI goes in both sides of it. There's the business model for AI, and then there's the creative side of AI that can also have AI developing from the very root of it. And I think personally, you need to do you, not AI. That is my strong opinion on that. Because again, look at the copyright issue. It's taking from other artists like us and you and putting it into a big bank and spilling out, taking pieces of all that to make something that makes money or is working, right? So again, it's stealing and it's cheating and you're being lazy. Bottom line is you're being lazy if you're using AI. That's it. You're taking work away from artists and you're being lazy. Hey, we've all had to go through it. Hey, I got this idea in my mind. I need to hire a storyboard artist or a sketch artist or a concept artist that you can find easily on the internet, but it's going to cost you. That's part of the journey, right? But if you just use AI and all this other stuff, it's going to spill it out for you pretty quickly. You're going to get to what you want, but again, you're kind of cheating, kind of being lazy.
Hi, Ted. Thank you so much for your time. So after listening all the answers and the questions, I'm really wondering how ethical it is to implement AI in creative field, considering the fact that the originality, the authenticity cannot be sourced from a machine. And if it is making a restriction or putting a strain on creative minds, why we are still not, I won't say blocking it, but why we are still promoting it. I mean, don't you think there should be a certain criteria to use it or maybe to abide it?
Sure. I mean, I think that the currently the sort of agreement between studios and the Writers Guild is a sensible one. You know, hey, this thing is here. We know that people are going to use it. Let's use it for kind of a positive experience rather than one where it can be used to kind of exploit people to write and engage with. I think that it is a bit like when I'm speaking to undergraduate students. We all know that we are going to use it, whether it's surreptitiously or very openly. And I think that the more we can kind of put these the guardrails, as I think it's called in the language of the contract between the WGA and the studios, is the more that we can shore up those guardrails and ensure that AI stays in a lane of tool or toy, is better, because you could see at the emergence of these large language models that it would just become the Wild West, and there would be no kind of restrictions or regulations into it at all. And I think that it is kind of the devil is better than the one that's out there rustling cattle. If just being honest, that's not to say the ethical implications of it. What have we trained these large language models on? And, have the people whose work has been fed through it been fairly commensurated? I mean, this is especially true of, the image generation AI that I talked about earlier. What did they train Midjourney on? Is it stuff that is freely available on open source images, or have they gone to, DeviantArt or kind of, non-available, non-Creative Commons work and kind of trained their model on it? And again, how will these people ever know if they have been, if their work has been effectively stolen to train an artist or this this AI artist? I don't have the answers for that, and I'm very glad I'm not a lawyer in this field, because I think I would struggle.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And our last question comes from Michaela.
Hello.
Hi.
So I would like to ask you, a family member of mine studies informatics in Germany, and every day I receive messages and screenshots with comment sections with a computer, and he's very deeply into it. And I would like to know your opinion. You mentioned the authenticity of your own work. If you are directing, let's say, your scripts, your whatever, on this type of person who produces it, who deals with it every day, and how would you explain the importance probably of a human being in the technology? Because let's say movies start to be produced literally by AI, wouldn't be the human being lost?
No, massively so. I mean, we after a few drinks at the pub, this was one of the conversations that we had with some friends, and ultimately we arrived at, well, who's going to pick up the award? Who's going to pick up the award for best screenplay if AI has written it? I don't think that us as I think at that point, human beings will be like, nah, not having this. Because I think that there is a fundamental kind of core emotion to us that when we are watching something, it has been made by human hands. It is a human being on the other end of that screen that is affecting us. And I think that we still want that authentic connection. I may be wrong. Maybe the generation below me does not feel that, but I think that if it's a bit like at the end of The Wizard of Oz. If you pull the curtain back, and there kind of has to be a man behind the curtain.
And it's even the kind of emotional level, right? Because computer can't give you any emotion. So when it's written by AI, I would assume that it's not even real, like literally real. Indeed, that there has to be an emotional core, an emotional truth to any piece of work, And I think that in order for that to be the case, we have to see the person who has made it. Barbie is a great piece of work, but I think that unless Greta Gerwig has made it, it is not Barbie. It is not the Barbie that I went to the cinema and loved and watched and celebrated. It is a corporation, Mattel, who's made it, and then I'm angry about it.
and then I'm upset. And I think I would have the same emotion if I knew that, you know, at the end when the credits came up, it was like written by ChatGPT. I would be outraged. I mean, you know, I think you would get the longest boo in Cannes history if that were the case. But at least I hope. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your answer.
Did that answer your question? I hope it did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of, it is. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
So thank you very much for answering our questions. Ted, we're going back to you, Scott.
Okay, Ted, well, there you've been interrogated by clever young things.
Yeah.
But that's great. You know, and I'm like you. I think that we do need that, but you know, us old fossils who barely know how to turn on a computer, but I sharpen pencils well, is the fact that we are looking for that original work. And I just hope that, you know, people like yourselves who are out there, you know, teaching, writing and whatever, and just to sort of saying to people, did you really get a feeling out of that? Because, you know, as a film director, my job is to put the right words and the right sound and the right picture, the right place at the right time to create an emotional response, whether it be love, hate, passion, whatever. And that's I think that's it will get there. It will really get there. Two takeaways from talking to my friend Lee is that we're terrified and excited at the same time. And one bit of advice that I'm sure that you join in with me on is to these clever young things that we have around us is there is a balance between what we do. I mean, I've prostituted and whored myself around the film industry enough to do things, to get enough money to do the things that I want to do. So don't, you know, Seth, don't worry about the fact that you will have to write shit that you don't want, as long as you can. And I think just finding that unique voice, and that's a thing that everybody struggles with. I still struggle with, but I'm very happy to walk in the room and say, hi, I'm Scott Hill, I'm a film director, because I make films the way I want to make them. I've also made films that I didn't want to make, or made them, but I didn't do them the way I wanted to do it. But find a balance and just work harder to get better.
Work harder, find a balance, and stay true to you. Stay true to your voice. No computer will ever be you, ever.
Can't beat that one. Lee, what a pleasure. See you, brother.
Thank you, sir. It's really great. I appreciate all you guys. These are great questions. Good luck with everything, but just always remember your individuality. That's what makes you special and who you are, and that's what makes us interested in what you have to say.
Well, we're about to wrap this up, everybody. I want to thank our guests Ted Wilkes and Lee Whittaker. We're still open for submissions at ÉCU, the European Independent Film Festival. They close on Valentine's Day, so if you have a film out there made from a great script, please check us out and submit your films. I'm going to say a very big thank you to Ted for your time. I think you've opened up the brains of these clever young things in our office and hopefully to our audience. It's been great. And two very strong takeaways I'm going to get from you on this is work harder to be better. It's not new. It's not a new concept, but it's the only real concept. And using a crutch or a tool is good, but work harder to get better. And out of all the reading that I do and things that I listen to, this is the first time I've heard artificial intelligence equated to cattle rustling. And I kind of like that very much. So anyway, thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure. ÉCU Friday Live, thank you to Rodrigo. Thank you to Seth for putting this together. And thanks to the ÉCU crew. Have a great weekend, everybody.
It's my pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for having me.